Um, I wanted to wait until most of the craziness of the fucking fireworks had ended. Um, it is now, I believe it is 13 after the hour. No, it's 10 after 10 after the hour, so it's 10 minutes into the July the 5th. This one's for Linda Park, too, because she is a mom. So for you, Linda, um, and for Cassius, and for your mom, I wanted to tell you that my mom had a seizure. She is in an induced coma at a hospital near Northern California. So it happened around, I don't know the details yet, but it happened around early noon today. So she had bleeding. I don't know if the bleeding is related to her hemophilia. She has recessive hemophilia, meaning that she doesn't have severe hemophilia, but the hemophilia may have played a role in that stroke. So she's 82 right now, and I don't know what's going to happen. Um, my mom is one of the family members that's currently helping me right now. Uh, more on this, I want to say. My mom and I, well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or happen in the morning. My mom and I was a very, I'm still, in some ways, I still am needy. But I was a needy child with my mom. My mom had always played favorites with my brother Sebastian and my oldest sister, kind of picking favorite children. When actors they pick their favorite children, they don't they say I love all my children. I love all the actors I work with. I love all the projects I work with. But they have to say that, right? Because you don't want to sound biased. But my mom had favorite children she liked. So I would always be clinging to my mom a lot when I was, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. My mom once told me that I had a hard time in nursery school at the age of 4 or 5 years old, that I couldn't cope with the other kids. I remember my aunt, her sister, who's still around, would have issues with me at 3. Like she would just be like this. I'm like, okay. Um, as I got older, I think I was 4, 5, 6, 7. Um, I think she passed away. My babysitter, Mrs. Brockman, who at the time, I think her husband passed away, but she was in her early 60s, late 50s, early 60s when she babysat me for a while, um, watching for people, listening. And then the last times I saw Mrs. Brockman was in her maybe in her 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And that was it. That was 2002, 2003. And I was always clinging on to my mom in some way. I always missed going to car rides with her. And I was like that for a while. And I talked about um, how, the W is for wish, right? The ABCs of death, too. And how uh, the action figure parody commercial little horror movie represented my life. When my brother died, and my mom would say this about my brother, that Sebastian, who would be 49 this year, uh, he didn't know the difference between right and wrong. So he had autism and blindness. That's what I deduced. And when my brother died, my mom threw herself on that casket. She threw herself on that casket at his funeral in 1987. That was really hard. That was really that was a tough time for everyone. That was the hardest funeral that I ever went to in my life, and it still is. Everybody else, my father, he made his bed, or my cousin, or other people, they were too old. Some people, like my cousin, I think I told you, Linda, about my cousin dying of cancer. she chose to go that way. She took too many cigarettes. She wouldn't listen to anybody but herself. She could lecture people, she could tell people what to do, but she would herself would never take her own advice. Um, as I got older, my mom would mourn for my brother a lot through the years, and like 5 year, 1 year later, 2 years later, my father was a bully about it to me. Like he wanted me to eat my food within seconds, and I'm like, why is my father punishing me? And my mom was married to a tyrant, bullying type of person who drank and smoked a lot, never exercised. And my sisters to this day would put my mom on a pedestal, right? But it's like she chose this man. She chose a horrible person to marry. Just like her sister, my aunt, chose a wife beater for a husband and father. And her two sons were in gangs. So it was coping with the fact that I was not Sebastian to my mom. When my brother died, my mom would cry and mourn every Christmas. I would ask her, why don't we do Thanksgivings? And she would say, I will never have another Thanksgiving ever again after your brother passed away. She asked God, if God is good, why did he take my son? Which was a good question, which was one of the first steps that made me not religious. But still, I respect the Ten Commandments, and I respect do unto others. And you try to do as much good as you possibly can for as long as you can. To kill someone in self-defense or to kill the enemy in the war, that's the last thing you should think about. That's what I was taught. Whether they intended to teach that to me or not, my parents or my sisters, that's what I know. So there was always a rift between my mom and me. I remember I told you before about the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and the Ritz crackers and the Capri Sun fruit drinks I got in kindergarten through the second and third grade. Then my mom would make me sandwiches. And I think at some point I would get cafeteria food in grade school. We never really talked with each other much. My mom was always into talking to others. She was a very, what's the word, misogynist feminist. You know, like she's a feminist, but she doesn't like, she, has this anti-male attitude. But it was kind of like when I listened to that one professor on the radio where a caller would call in and say, well, women go to Starbucks and blah, blah, how terrible their husbands are, but meanwhile, they're spending their cards. Well, some women are like that. My mom was like that. But she would never leave my father. She would never leave. My father died in 2002, 23 years ago. My mom is 82 right now. Even before this happened today, and I knew that I waited for this call for years because my sister would call up and I think something terrible has happened. My grandmother, my dad's mom, who my mom would take care of, they had similar traits. My grandmother, so mother-in-law and mom, right? My mom and my grandma had similar traits. And my grandma died at 82 from cancer, from lung cancer, and she never exercised. My mom, I don't know what she did. I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out in the morning. But if you had to ask me now, like at 82, I feel like 82 is going to be this year that she goes. Michael Madsen, if you remember Michael Madsen, if you ever, I don't know, Linda Park, if you ever met Michael Madsen. Michael Madsen he had a cardiac arrest and he died on July 3rd. And then I saw earlier today on July 4th, I saw Barbara Eden. And she just celebrated her 93rd 4th of July. And I don't know what that woman does. Now, some people would roll up their eyes and say, oh, well, she's got money, power, and fame. Maybe she got like these doctors, these renowned, maybe she's got these renowned doctors. But Michael Madsen didn't live to be 90. So maybe she was paying attention more to her body and her doctor. And if my mom does go, which is likely to happen, it was because she didn't take care of herself. My mom did not vote for Trump, like you. She did not vote for Trump. She hated Trump. My mom, when I saw my mom, and she wanted me to go with her for dinner the last time she was around. And I said, I just wouldn't do it. But listen to what I'm saying. I was not against seeing her if she wanted to come by and visit. My mom is one of the significant family members that's paying for my living here in this condominium. The condominium is paid for, but um, it's tough being in between jobs or volunteering. The best jobs that I can get right now is working blue collar jobs and working dead end jobs. Because I don't have a wife or ex-wife or children, I don't have, or bookies or the mob or gangsters or the IRS. I don't owe anybody anything. So I'm not in debt to anybody. So these kind of jobs, I work until they abuse me and then I leave. But that's kind of rolling up the eyes like, what's the point? So that's my situation. But let me get back to my mom. So she's in a coma right now. They're going to try to see if the doctors are going to try to see if they can get the bleeding kind of down to a minimal. Right now, I'm using a pen, and I'll show you in a future post that I'm using a pen for my case study infusions. So no more syringes, no more needles, no more tubes and mixing liquids together and heating up the liquids or whatever. I would just use a pen, and it's like an insulin shot. And I kind of waited 47 years of my life for that. My mom and my mom is kind of like Aunt May when you can't tell her you're Spider-Man. She's very, she lives in her own universe. When I was there at those dinners, and before I tend to interrupt myself, but the last times I had dinners with her, she was still on Trump saying that Mexicans were rapists and murderers. The problem with that was that she watched a 10-second clip from your trusted news source, because the news never lies except when they do, which is most of the time. Now they do. And I stopped watching the TV news. No more nightly news, World News Tonight, evening news, CNN, nothing. But you know what I did when I stayed home? I watched that whole 5-hour thing. I had to. But with my mom, you can't explain things to her. You cannot explain things. She lives in her own universe about what is what. She looks for the bad guy. My mom has, because she's a misogynist feminist, she has a very distrusting attitude towards all men. Like all men are slimy. It's like women can be slimy too. So we got more fireworks out there. It was just most of the time I would just argue with her. She was a perfectionist about everything. Everything had to be a certain way. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't let herself relax. My mom never had girlfriends. There would never be friends over the house because my father, a man who was like, he paid the bills and everything, but he was a nasty person at times. He did not want my mom to have friends. So my mom wouldn't. She made co-worker friends, but she just never lived life like that. She didn't smoke weed. She didn't drink like a lush. Or like a goldfish. She didn't smoke. She wasn't chain smoking. She didn't do any narcotics, no edibles, no weed, or no crack, nothing. She never had that kind of life. She was always like working in my mom's restaurant. She spent the first 20 years of her life with my grandmother, her mom, and her dad who cheated on. So my grandpa cheated on my grandmother with different women, and he died at one of his mistress's sides. And my mom worked at that restaurant. It's little shops now, but if you were to go to downtown Los Angeles from the east going west, you would see these little shops, kind of these little outdoor, like almost like an outdoor swap meet, but it's a series of little stores. And my grandmother's restaurant was there. And my mom had to work my father hated it, and I kind of hated that too, that my mom was worked to death and she didn't have a life outside that restaurant. But my father tried to control me. So where does that leave us, right? My parents were very controlling. So how did we learn from other people? So that was tough. So my mom worked like a dog until she married my dad. She married my dad at 21 years old. She got married, I think they got married in 1964, and then had my oldest sister in 65. Did they get married because of my sister? Did my There was this theory that I have in my head that maybe my dad hit my mom one time, and that was when he had a fit with her about something stupid, and before any of us were around. Now, none of us were around to confirm or deny that that happened. But you know my father's temper. If we weren't around for him to hit, guess who he was hitting? Take a guess. 21 years old, you figure that out. And my mom put up with that. She put up with a lot of things. But on my end, I wasn't as good as Sebastian. She was never going to leave our father. And, but some of the good qualities that I saw in my mom was that she loves arts and crafts. She liked painting. She painted a big painting, like as big as this window is behind me, of my sisters when they were 11, 10, 11, 12 years old. She made different paintings. She would paint. She would take gourds and paint the gourds. She would do needlepoint, do stitching. You get the round pizza pie, the little wooden pizza pie thing, and you start knitting. She made blankets. Let me see if I can find a specific blanket here. Okay, I could not find the blanket, but I found something. It was a blanket that was black and had rainbow colors that matched my sweater. I think I asked my mom to make one that looked like it. I used to have, when I was 6 or 7 years old, maybe when I was starting kindergarten, first grade, I had a black sweater with rainbow colors across. That was when rainbows were rainbows and was not about pride or orientation. It was just about colors, and that was cool. And so she made this nice blanket. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, this was Sonic from the GamePro magazine that was made in the summer or fall of 1991, because I stared at this and I knew Sonic was going to become something. Now, you see that he doesn't have the side spikes because at the time nobody really knew if he had side spikes. So if Sonic is looking at you straight ahead, does he have the side spikes, or does he just have the one mohawk? So, it's an anthropomorphic hedgehog. But my mom made this about almost 35 years ago, and I still have it. So there is the Sonic doll that my mom made out of velvet. Take good care of that. My mom also made that Batman 1989 Halloween costume. My mom is very good at arts and crafts, and that's where I get it from. There were a lot of positive things. She worked hard as a homemaker. She worked hard at McDonald's. She worked hard at McDonald's in her 30s to 40s. I want to say 1984 and 85, 40s, like her early 40s, okay? Then she worked in every job. She worked in every job that either my sister's colleges or hospitals or places, just different places, okay? So she worked in different places, and I think the McDonald's job, she didn't get the manager job because the guy gave it to his girlfriend. That was shit. But the last job she worked was the special ed school that I used to go to up until the second grade. And then I moved on to Robert Hill Lane for the 3rd through 8th grade. I think I was only there for 3 to 5th. I was a problem child, so I had problems. But my mom didn't like dealing with her coworkers, so she quit that job. There are good qualities to my mom, but there are also bad ones. And unfortunately, the bad outweighed the good. And we were never able to speak to each other much. And she made a lot of decisions that upset me, so we would text each other more than talk. And that's where we're at. The last thing she did talk to me about in text messages is about the mail, somebody breaking into mailboxes at, my condominium, or just like bullet points that's happening at my condominium. That's the last time we talked to each other. My mom doesn't know how to communicate well. She kind of lives in the past about things. She doesn't know how to use the internet very much. She doesn't know how to use computers very much. She's not the kind of person to play video games or like Star Wars, or she just never cared about any of the stuff that we as either, slightly younger people or millennials take for granted. It's like, don't you know Star Wars? Well, my mom knows Star Wars. She took my brother when he was a baby and he screamed and cried throughout the whole Star Wars movie. So I guess safe to say my brother never liked Star Wars. But I got into it a little bit. So 20 minutes in, I just want to talk a little bit about my family going on. Um, it was rough. It's been a rough journey with me and my mom. We just don't get along. We could never have this way that I'm talking to you all right now. It could never happen. I could never talk to anybody in my family on this level. It's just, oh, how's it going? Okay, I'll take care of this. Okay, it's this. That's it. There is no deep, meaningful conversation or joking around. Let's have a laugh. My mom said, there's a couple things my mom said the last time we were in person. She liked hamburgers with mayonnaise along with ketchup and mustard. But if you don't mean what you say, don't joke around with somebody. I disagree. I think if you know the person, you can joke around with the person. And that's it. I hope you all stayed through to the end. I'm just going to keep an eye on what's happening tomorrow. I just want to say all this stuff now, just in case the worst happens. I don't know what's going to happen, but I had to learn from my parents' mistakes and being in charge of my own destiny. And that's about it. So we'll just show Sonic at the end and wish my mom luck. And can we fix the stroke? Can we fix her problem and make her well? As Sonic would say, let's do it to it.